I just had some time in my hands and I just said, well, that's it,
The year was 1982, and Genesis was at a crossroads that could have changed music history forever. Phil Collins, the drummer-turned-frontman who had saved the band after Peter Gabriel's departure, was about to face the ultimate betrayal from his own bandmates. Behind the scenes, jealousy was festering, ultimatums were being delivered, and the very success that made Phil a household name was threatening to destroy one of progressive rock's most iconic bands. Now, decades later, his ex-wife Andrea Bertorelli is finally breaking her silence about the explosive confrontations, bitter rivalries, and shocking hypocrisy that nearly tore Genesis apart. What she reveals will forever change how you see the band's most turbulent period, and the man who almost lost everything he'd worked to build. Let's explore how Phil Collins' greatest triumph nearly became Genesis's greatest tragedy. The solo success that changed everything. The crisis that nearly destroyed Genesis began with what should have been a celebration. In 1981, Phil Collins released Face Value, his deeply personal debut solo album inspired by his painful divorce from Andrea Bertorelli. The album wasn't just successful, it was a cultural phenomenon that transformed Phil from a respected musician into a global superstar practically overnight. Andrea Bertorelli recently revealed how this success immediately created tension within Genesis. She described watching as radio stations played Phil's solo work constantly while ignoring new Genesis material. The band that had worked for over a decade to build their reputation suddenly found themselves overshadowed by their own frontman's side project. The success of songs like In the Air Tonight created an uncomfortable reality where Phil Collins, the solo artist, was becoming bigger than Genesis the band. This shift fundamentally altered the power dynamics within the group. Phil was no longer just the drummer who had stepped up to sing after Peter Gabriel left. He was now a proven solo artist with his own identity, fan base, and creative vision. The delicate balance that had sustained Genesis through their most successful period was beginning to crumble under the weight of Phil's individual achievements. What had started as a therapeutic outlet for Phil's personal pain was becoming the source of professional turmoil that would threaten the band's very existence. The Greeneyed Monster. Jealousy tears the band apart. According to Andrea's explosive revelations, the success of Face Value exposed deep-seated jealousies that had been simmering beneath Genesis's surface for years. Tony Banks, the band's keyboardist and primary composer, was particularly affected by Phil's breakthrough. Andrea revealed that Tony felt his musical contributions were being overshadowed by Phil's newfound celebrity status. The situation became even more volatile when Tony Banks allegedly said, "Phil lacks the intellectual depth that Peter brought to Genesis. He's more interested in commercial success than artistic integrity." This cutting assessment revealed the fundamental divide that was tearing the band apart: the tension between artistic credibility and commercial appeal. Andrea disclosed that Tony was especially frustrated by what he perceived as Phil's push toward more radio-friendly material. Banks had always prided himself on Genesis's progressive complexity, viewing Phil's mainstream appeal as a betrayal of the band's sophisticated musical heritage. As Andrea put it, Tony was jealous of Phil's songwriting recognition. He felt he was the real musical genius behind Genesis. Mike Rutherford found himself caught in the middle of this growing tension. While maintaining a diplomatic public stance, Andrea revealed that privately, Mike was concerned about Phil's divided attention. The band that had once functioned as a tight-knit unit was fracturing under the weight of competing egos and conflicting artistic visions. The jealousy wasn't just about recognition, it was also financial, as Phil's solo earnings dwarfed Genesis's shared profits, creating an uncomfortable disparity among the band members. The 1982 Ultimatum, a band divided. The crisis reached its explosive climax in 1982 when Genesis delivered Phil Collins an ultimatum that could have ended his career with the band forever. Andrea Bertorelli revealed the shocking details of this confrontation, describing how Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford cornered Phil with an impossible choice. According to Andrea, they told him he had to choose Genesis or solo career. He couldn't do both at the level he was attempting. The ultimatum was stark and uncompromising, delivered at the height of Phil's solo success when In the Air Tonight was dominating airwaves worldwide. To ask him to abandon this triumph seemed not only unreasonable but potentially career-destroying. But Phil's response was equally defiant. Andrea revealed that he reportedly told his bandmates, "I created the sound that made Genesis successful after Peter Gabriel left. They need me more than I need them." This bold declaration highlighted just how much the power dynamics had shifted within the band. The confrontation became even more heated when Tony Banks allegedly stormed out, saying, "Find a new singer." Andrea disclosed, "After a particularly heated argument about tour scheduling conflicts, Tony stormed out saying, 'Find a new singer.'" This was the closest Genesis ever came to actually firing Phil Collins, the man who had arguably saved the band after Gabriel's departure. Could the band that Phil had helped resurrect really be prepared to fire the man who had become their most recognizable face? The irony was devastating. Phil had stepped up to save Genesis, only to have that very success used against him as evidence of his disloyalty. The hypocrisy exposed, double standards and broken promises. Perhaps the most damaging revelation from Andrea Bertorelli concerns the shocking double standard that emerged within Genesis regarding side projects. While Phil was being threatened with dismissal for his solo success, Mike Rutherford was simultaneously developing his own side project, Mike plus the Mechanics. Andrea observed the glaring hypocrisy. When Mike formed Mike and the Mechanics, suddenly side projects were acceptable. It was hypocritical. When Mike announced his plans for the Mechanics, there were no ultimatums, no heated band meetings, and no demands that he choose between his loyalty to Genesis and his outside interests. The contrast was stark and undeniable. This double standard revealed that the issue wasn't really about divided loyalties or scheduling conflicts. It was about the scale of Phil's success and the threat it posed to the established hierarchy. Mike's project, while successful, never reached the stratospheric heights of Phil's solo career. It didn't overshadow Genesis or make Mike a bigger star than the band itself. The hypocrisy extended to financial arrangements as well. Andrea revealed, Phil's solo earnings were massive compared to Genesis splits. The others wanted a bigger cut of his solo profits since Genesis made him famous. She added, there were lawyers involved. The band wanted to renegotiate Phil's solo deals to benefit Genesis. Yet no similar expectations were placed on Mike's earnings from the Mechanics, highlighting the personal nature of the conflict and the extent to which jealousy was driving the band's decisions. The aftermath: scars that never healed. The crisis that nearly destroyed Genesis was eventually resolved through a compromise that allowed the band to continue, but the damage to their relationships was permanent. According to Andrea, Phil agreed to give Genesis scheduling priority for major albums and tours while maintaining his right to pursue solo projects. This arrangement satisfied immediate concerns, but couldn't heal the deeper wounds. Andrea revealed the lasting impact. Phil proved he could do both successfully, but it nearly destroyed the band in the process. The trust and camaraderie that had sustained Genesis through their early years was permanently damaged. Phil never forgot the ultimatum, or how his bandmates had treated his success as a threat rather than an achievement. The resolution came at a significant cost. As Andrea noted, Phil was constantly stressed about balancing both careers. He'd come home exhausted from managing band politics and solo demands. The band that had once been equals became increasingly defined by Phil's personality and musical vision, exactly the outcome that Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford had feared. Looking back, Mike Rutherford later reflected, "The conflict forced us to define what Genesis really was. We emerged stronger." But did they really? The 1982 Ultimatum represents a turning point where personal jealousies and professional insecurities nearly destroyed one of music's most successful partnerships. The fact that Genesis survived is testament to their professionalism, but the cost was the loss of genuine friendship and creative equality that had originally made them special. What do you think? Was Genesis right to demand Phil choose between his solo career and the band? Or were they simply jealous of his phenomenal success? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this explosive look into one of rock music's most dramatic behind-the-scenes stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell for more shocking revelations from the world of music. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.